Good morning. This morning we're going to be addressing one of the questions that we commonly receive at Caltha. That's how long does a Phase 1 environmental site assessment take? This is particularly important to borrowers and lenders that are trying to schedule a loan closing and need to go through the environmental review process in order to close a loan. So to answer that question, we need to understand what the overall review process is. The environmental review starts with a Phase 1 environmental site assessment, which is typically requires 2 weeks. If it's taking longer than 2 weeks, then you should really question how the work is being done. Now, a Phase 1 is going to simply look for indications of risks for contamination on a piece of property. If there are no indications of risks, or referred to as recognized environmental conditions, then the process ends with the Phase 1 and you've only had to allocate 2 weeks. However, if there are indications that there is a higher risk for contamination, then a Phase 2 is typically recommended. Now, a Phase 2 limited site investigation will add 4 to 6 weeks to your overall schedule. Now, a Phase 2 is simply looking for the presence or absence of contamination on a piece of property. It is not a complete investigation of the property. If there is no contamination that's discovered during the Phase 2, then the process ends. However, if there is contamination that is discovered, then there will be, in most cases, an obligation to report that to a state agency. Once that's been reported, the path that the project takes will really depend on exactly what's found and the parties that are involved, but there may be the requirement to get liability protection letters for the borrower or for a lender. There might be some additional investigation or cleanup. And ultimately, we'd like to see the contamination issue pushed to closure. Obviously, this will add some time to the overall project. So let's add these up and calculate out the lead time we would need to allocate in order to get through this process. So if we had a Phase 1 only, there were no recognized environmental conditions identified, the process should be completed in 2 weeks. However, if there were recognized environmental conditions that were identified and we have to go to a Phase 2, then the total time that would need to be allocated is 6 to 8 weeks. If there is contamination that's discovered during the Phase 2, it needs to be reported to the state agency, and liability letters are required either by the lender or for the buyer. Then the total time that needs to be allocated is 11 to 14 weeks. Now, obviously, you don't know what you're going to find until you've actually completed the Phase 1 or Phase 2, but it gives you some sense for with the time frame if there is contamination that is discovered. If there's additional cleanup that's required, the time frame is again extended, and it's not unusual for this to take 6 months or even quite a bit longer than that to be completed. So I hope this is helpful to you as you're planning your environmental review. If you have any other questions, please contact Caltha LLP. We'll put you in contact with one of our environmental professionals who should be able to answer any questions you have. Have a good day.